With one of the strongest and most versatile abilities in the game, Sylveon EX has broken onto the scene as the core engine for many different decks. With a positive win rate across 20% of tournament pools, Sylveon is hands down the most important card in the newest set. The added draw support that Sylveon provides, combined with two Pokémon that seem to always be relevant, if not meta-defining, has resulted in the most popular deck in the format. I'm Nova from RoseTCG, and today we're going to break down how to play Sylveon EX in the new EV Grove format. The main appeal of this deck is the consistency that Sylveon provides, acting as the glue that holds Greninja and Giratina EX together. Darkrai EX has long proven that Giratina works best with utility Pokémon that can provide chip damage from the bench to help secure knockouts. While Greninja's ability to do this has always been stronger than Darkrai's due to it not having an energy attachment requirement, it's been less feasible to set up Greninja due to it being a stage 2 Pokémon. But with Rare Candy now in the picture, and Sylveon allowing players to pick up 2 extra cards upon evolution, Giratina is finally able to work with its more suitable partner. This newly attainable synergy has created a deck with immense late game potential where all Pokémon are able to get involved offensively. Despite a strong late game, this deck's early game setup is slow and easily countered by faster paced decks. Because all 3 Pokémon are so crucial to this deck's game plan, there isn't really a solid lead attacker that can be opened with. Eevee needs a couple of turns to evolve to get the engine rolling. Froakie can't get knocked out or else you'll lose the late game chip necessary for Giratina and Cyrus to be the deck's win condition, and Giratina needs time to build up energy, preferably without taking too much damage. While this deck is very consistent and plays well through its Pokémon, without key cards like Rare Candy and Cyrus, it can be somewhat difficult to reach the late game in an advantageous position. Sylveon decks are pretty unique compared to most, as the core is built around the utility use of a Pokémon as opposed to its attack. While Sylveon's Fairy Wind attack does a decent amount of damage for 2 energy, its Happy Ribbon ability is the most important piece for any Sylveon deck. Whenever you evolve an Eevee into Sylveon EX, you have the option to draw 2 cards from your deck. It's basically Professor's Research as an ability, but without using your supporter for the turn. This inherently makes Sylveon decks easily the most consistent in the game when it comes to board setup. The first of 2 variant Pokémon for this deck is GA Greninja. Greninja's priority in this deck is to utilize its Water Shuriken ability to create pressure and supplement any damage where Giratina may fall short. Partnered with Cyrus, Greninja opens up many avenues for this deck to close out games effectively, and is this build's primary means of disrupting opposing boards. Additionally, due to this deck's tendency to share the wealth offensively, Greninja has plenty of opportunity to take sneaky knockouts and shift the deck's gameplay into a temporary single prize mode. But most importantly, with the build containing 2 different energy types and its heaviest attacker requiring 4 energy to go on the offensive, Greninja's ability is the most reliable source of damage output. Giratina finds itself in unfamiliar territory with this deck, as it's not necessarily the main focal point. That said, it is still incredibly important in just about every matchup. Giratina serves as the closing piece to this deck due to its self-sufficient energy acceleration and an attack that follows Greninja's Water Shuriken ability incredibly well. Due to its Broken Space Bellow ability ending the turns it's used on, there's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to knowing when to start attacking through Sylveon or Greninja and when to keep stockpiling for late game sweep. It's also vital that you protect Giratina as much as possible, especially in matchups against bulkier EX Pokémon, as it's your only attacker that can deal substantial damage in one turn. With 3 different basic Pokémon that ideally occupy space on the board simultaneously, Pokeball is more of a staple in this deck than it already is in most others. With Eevee and Froakie being basics that need to evolve, finding early Pokeballs can be a key difference maker when it comes to establishing good pace that translates into pressure. While this deck is consistent, it takes time to ramp up into anything meaningful, so the importance of having items available that increase tempo can't be understated. Without Greninja on the bench chipping away at key targets and Giratina building up energy, this deck becomes a lot less threatening. A staple in most evolution decks, PC is vital for a deck that runs 3 unique lines of Pokémon. While PC has become a bit less relevant due to the addition of Rare Candy, This deck is a prime example of both working together seamlessly. With so many moving parts in this build, it can be difficult to always have the exact card you need in hand. But in combination with Sylveon's Happy Ribbon ability and Professor's Research, a solid amount of value can be drawn from PC and its ability to swap out Pokemon. This deck's identity is in drawing and searching, and PC uplifts that identity effectively. This deck is equally cramped as it is consistent, which makes Rare Candy a crucial inclusion, as you can't really afford to run Frogadier. Still, needing to play this card despite Sylveon and Giratina not benefiting from it really speaks to the importance of Greninja and how every cog has a specific role to keep this machine flowing. Not only that, the board acceleration that Rare Candy provides is a great way to establish unexpected pressure where opponents may have thought they had the upper hand. When a Froakie is on the board with a bigger Pokemon like Sylveon or Giratina, it's not all that threatening. But when Rare Candy slams a Greninja onto the bench, it becomes much more difficult for opponents to identify their next target. One of the downsides of this build is that it revolves around 2 EX Pokemon and a Stage 2 Pokemon that don't have the most favorable HP counts. Throw in an attack that deals 20 damage and recoil to the most important attacker, and you found yourself with a reasonable need for Giant Cape. Stretching the HP of any of the Pokemon in this deck is really helpful, more commonly in the early game to avoid disastrous knockouts that would put you on the back foot, but also in the late game if you find yourself in scenarios where Giratina needs a little bit more HP to duel against opposing closers. There are many creative ways Giant Cape can be used to maintain or secure advantages, and knowing how to do so is one of this deck's greatest learning curves. You might think that with Sylveon's ability, you wouldn't have the need for Professor's Research, but the draw power is so good that there's no reason to not include it. The ability to potentially draw 4 or 6 extra cards in one turn, or 8 over the course of a few, is what makes Sylveon so brilliant. Not allowing yourself the option to take advantage of this draw support in entirety is senseless. With the pressure that Giratina and Greninja create by themselves, there's no such thing as being too consistent with this deck. Especially since the main weakness of the duo is just that they're a bit slower to build into compared to the other decks in the meta. The final fill card for this deck is Cyrus. Without Cyrus, this deck would struggle to close out many late game scenarios that are otherwise free with his inclusion. No matter what happens in the point trade, as long as you have a setup attacker, Greninja on the bench, and 1 or 2 Cyruses still available, there's something you can do to get yourself back in the game, if not win it outright. While many decks benefit from Cyrus, there's yet to be a better partner for him than Greninja. The only tech card for this deck is mostly just included for the mirror match. Due to the popularity of Sylveon EX, Red Card has been seeing a sizable uptick in play since it nullifies Sylveon's abilities so well. While its impact on other decks, especially faster ones, is pretty negligible, not having it against Sylveon decks is pretty much just asking to lose. Sylveon EX's weaker matchups include Giratina EX, Solgaleo EX, and Flareon EX. Giratina is difficult to deal with as the offensive identity of both decks is very similar, but Giratina will almost always win in the war of attrition. For starters, it runs 2 Giratina instead of 1, but also has a stronger backup attacker in Darkrai compared to Sylveon and Greninja. This deck's entire identity is based in a dominant late game, but the traditional Giratina build is still the strongest when it comes to closing out games. As for Solgaleo, Sylveon is honestly the ideal matchup. Sylveon creates no early game pressure to take advantage of the weaker basics in Solgaleo decks, and Solgaleo one-shots Sylveon without damage amplifiers due to its type advantage. As for Flareon, the 1-2 punch of Leafeon EX into Flareon EX is too much for Sylveon to handle in most game scenarios. Additionally, it's one of the few decks that can match Sylveon's consistency due to it playing a Sylveon of its own and having a variety of attackers to draw from. Sylveon's best matchups are against Guzzlord EX, Tapu Koko EX, and Silvally. When it comes to Guzzlord, Sylveon decks don't really care about attacking until the late game, which makes it easy to avoid poison, and aside from Giratina, it's a rather energy efficient deck. This leaves Guzzlord decks with only 1 win condition to play through, but it's pretty easy for Sylveon decks to knock out Guzzlord and a single point Pokemon for game before Guzzlord can knock out Giratina. As for Tapu Koko, Greninja is easily the best counter into Oricorio, as its attack is quick to set up. It can do chip damage to Oricorio without attacking, and with the help of Cyrus, it can ignore Oricorio altogether. And finally, for Silvally, the same logic is applied. The first and probably most important tip for this deck is to save Sylveon until you need a specific card. The only way to counter red card in Mars is to not evolve Eevee and save Sylveon until you know you need a specific card, either out of necessity or to advance your board state. The second tip is to do your best to protect Froakie and Giratina as much as possible until the late game. Sylveon is important, but consistency and draw power mean nothing if you have no late game offense to build into and close out games with. The third tip revolves around energy attachment. Due to this deck running two different types of energy, you will run into situations where you have two water energy lined up in your energy zone. Whenever this happens, always attach the first energy to a Greninja, as neither Sylveon nor Giratina benefit from having two water energy attached at once. The final tip is that it is possible to choose not to draw from Sylveon's ability when evolving, so try not to misclick. If you're looking to play Sylveon EX, then here's the list we recommend. 2 Sylveon EX, 2 EG Eevee, 2 GA Greninja, 2 GA Froakie, 1 SR Giratina EX, 2 Pokeball, 1 Pokemon Communication, 2 Rare Candy, 1 Giant Cape, 2 Professor's Research, 2 Cyrus, and 1 Red Card. That wraps up our Sylveon EX deck profile. If you found this video helpful, feel free to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out our socials and join our community on Discord too. Good luck in your games, and thanks for watching.